My name is Angie Smith. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Operations for the West Aurora School District. We are a K-12 district, about 30, 40 miles right outside of Chicago. We are a district that's about 50% free and reduced lunch. We've had the fortune over the last several years to be able to do some significant capital projects due to a referendum and due to some of our ESSER funding. But we really look at these learning walls as that next project, so to speak. We took care of a lot of our health, life safety sort of things, and now we've tested these in multiple locations, in multiple different scenarios, elementary, middle, and high school, and now we're getting ready to roll more out because they've been successful for us. The beauty of it is it can fit multiple solutions. I mean, we've talked about, we already use it in some pre-K classrooms. We've got it in LMC, and we're looking at it in a redo of high school CTE spaces. So it's very versatile. It's not just shelving. Because you can customize so much of the inside, it could hold books, or it can hold ladles and spoons and pots and pans. There's really no downside in terms of it's got to hold this. It's so customizable, which I think, given that we're a K-12 district and we have so many different types of classrooms, whether it's a pre-K classroom, a self-contained classroom, or a very active CTE classroom, it's nice to have a solution that we can adapt to any of those environments. All the casework is pretty much going to do is be shelves with books. This is going to give you some more flexibility, whether you want to, merchandise things and create nooks for kids. It's more of a retail model, which you can't do with casework because the casework is on the wall, it's under a window, pretty limited to what you can do. Here you've got a lot more opportunity to sort of make it your own. From a funding standpoint in our district, obviously we're just coming off of ESSER, which a lot of people were able to do a lot of things that have changed, but we have a lot of title classrooms. And because this is furniture, the furniture itself is able to come through title funding. It would also be a great target, in all honesty, for a PTO or a PTA who might want to be able to point to something that they did. The labor part, you might need to look at a little different, but there's very minimal labor with this because you're not doing a full-on construction. Most of the places we put this was just an add-in to an existing classroom. It wasn't a new build. It wasn't a complete remodel, because really you're talking about something that sits on the floor. It doesn't have to be, there's not a lot of demo or a lot of construction involved, so you don't need to look at Fund 20. You could, if you wanted to, if you were looking at a full-blown grade level or a building, you might want to look at it as more capital purchase. But the beauty of it is if you wanted to do a classroom at a time and treat it more like furniture, that might make it a little bit easier to test, a little bit more palatable, maybe for your board to see how things work and give you some more access to some other funding sources. We've kind of come full circle with a lot of different things with education, like tends to happen. But, in our district alone, we've got buildings that were built in the 50s and buildings that were built in 2000s. And to your point, it doesn't matter when it was built. It doesn't matter who was involved. There's never enough storage, because let's be honest, at the end of the day, however much storage you give a teacher, they will fill. The beauty of this is it does somewhat create a situation where, from a visual noise standpoint, you really can put some things away and not have them be out all the time. I think, a teacher could use it, as we kind of talked about before, to merchandise and create a nook, but it also is storage at the end of the day. So if they want things away and not have them in the line of sight for kids who might want to go do it or have that visual mess, this really minimizes that and kind of then lets you focus a little bit more. And we know that kids these days, there's a lot of struggles in terms of keeping kids' attention. And taking away some of that visual clutter, I think, is kind of a benefit that you don't really think about. Obviously, we don't want teachers to just open up the doors and dump everything in, because there's a lot of opportunity to use it in a way that it can be another center that's ready to go. A teacher who plans well could have things set up and ready to go, open up a door, boom, I've got a center. When that's done, shut the door, done and over with. But I think that's how we're going to have to think about space, because floor space is at a premium. There's a lot of things that we want to do in a classroom that require movement, and this just gives you a little bit more by not having to necessarily have all four walls covered with shelves or things that are rolling, just to make sure that you've got room. They're deceptively large when you open them up and look at how much can actually go in there, especially if we plan well. One unit like this is going to get far more storage than, a whole classroom lined with, a couple foot tall shelves. We know that the more access kids have to books, the more likely they are to want to pick one up themselves and read. And we know that, kids will take field trips, for lack of a better word, down the hall to the library here and there, but they spend most of their time in their classroom. So the beauty of this is having the ability to have more accessible books than I might otherwise have just in bins. And to the point about merchandising, my kids are all in their mid-20s, but it used to be you'd come in, there'd be just a basket and you'd kind of have to go through it and they'd be leveled and but there wasn't really a great way for kids to see what there was to choose from. The beauty of these walls is, lets kids be shoppers. And kids can go after what they find interesting. And it also allows teachers to merchandise in a way that maybe a book that if it was at the bottom of a basket, a kid would never pick up. If they can see it merchandised front and center, now all of a sudden they're reading that book.